Imagine a time, long before our modern world was shaped by technology and the hustle of daily life. A time when the earth was still young, and the stories of creation danced on the lips of storytellers. In this vivid tapestry of ancient history, a figure emerged who would become a cornerstone of faith, a beacon of hope, and a symbol of liberation. Moses. Now, when we think of Moses, we often picture the man who led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt, but his story is so much richer, so much deeper than that. Born at a time when the Pharaoh decreed that Hebrew boys should be killed, Moses was saved by what can only be described as divine intervention. His mother, in a desperate act of love, placed him in a basket and set him adrift on the Nile. Can you imagine that moment? The heart-wrenching decision to let go, trusting that something greater would protect him. And it did. He was found and raised in Pharaoh's court, a child of two worlds, navigating the privileges of royalty while carrying the weight of his people's suffering. But life in the palace couldn't silence the cries of the oppressed. One day, witnessing an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, Moses could no longer stand by. In a fit of righteous anger, he defended the helpless man, killing the oppressor in the process. This act of defiance forced him to flee, leaving behind the life he knew. It's a pivotal moment that many of us can relate to, feeling torn between two identities, struggling to find where we truly belong. Years passed, and in the wilderness of Midian, Moses found solace, starting a new life as a shepherd. It was here, in the quiet of the desert, that he encountered the burning bush, a moment that would change everything. God spoke to him, calling him to return to Egypt as the chosen prophet, to free his people from bondage. Can you imagine that moment? The weight of the world resting on your shoulders, the fear of failure gnawing at your insides, yet feeling that undeniable pull to fulfill a greater purpose. Moses returned to Egypt, confronting Pharaoh with a message that would shake the foundations of the empire. Let my people go. What followed were the plagues, 10 harrowing signs that demonstrated the power of the divine. Each plague was a challenge, a confrontation between the God of Israel and the false gods of Egypt. The Nile turning to blood, locusts swarming, darkness covering the land. These were not just stories. They were profound declarations of liberation. And finally, with the death of the firstborn, Pharaoh relented and the Israelites fled, crossing the Red Sea in a miraculous escape. But the journey was far from over. The Israelites wandered in the desert, a time of trials and tribulations, where faith was tested and doubts crept in like shadows. It's a journey we can all relate to, isn't it? The feeling of being lost, unsure of where we're headed, grappling with our faith amidst uncertainty. Then came Mount Sinai, a sacred moment where Moses ascended to commune with God. Here, he received the 10 Commandments, a set of laws that would guide his people toward a moral and ethical life. These commandments were not just rules. They were a covenant, a divine promise that would shape the identity of the Israelites. Can you imagine the weight of those stones, the gravity of those words? You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not murder. These weren't just laws, they were the foundation of a new way of life. As Moses descended from the mountain, his face radiant from the divine encounter, he carried not just laws, but a legacy. The Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, became a sacred text, a record of creation, covenant, and community. Genesis told the story of beginnings, of Adam and Eve, of Noah and the flood, of the patriarchs who would become the ancestors of a great nation. Exodus recounted the liberation from Egypt and the establishment of a new identity. Leviticus outlined the rituals and laws that would govern worship and daily life, emphasizing the importance of holiness. Numbers chronicled the journey through the wilderness, a testament to perseverance and faith. And Deuteronomy served as Moses' farewell, a reminder of the covenant and a call to faithfulness as they prepared to enter the promised land. Yet, as we explore these ancient texts, modern scholarship brings forth new perspectives. The documentary hypothesis suggests that the Pentateuch was woven together from various sources, reflecting the complexities of history and tradition. It raises questions about authorship and inspiration, challenging us to think critically about our sacred stories. But for many believers, Moses remains the revered author, a symbol of divine guidance and inspiration. His journey, his struggles, and his triumphs resonate across millennia, shaping the spiritual and cultural identity of billions. So what does Moses teach us today? He embodies the struggle for justice, the quest for identity, and the power of faith in the face of adversity. His story is a reminder that our journeys, with all their twists and turns, are part of a larger narrative. We are all, in some way, searching for our own Mount Sinai, seeking connection, purpose, and understanding in a world that often feels chaotic. In the end, Moses isn't just a figure of ancient history. He is a reflection of our own struggles and aspirations. His legacy, captured in the Pentateuch, continues to guide us, inviting us to explore our own stories, our own faith, and our own paths toward liberation. So let's carry forward his message, embracing the journey and seeking the divine in our everyday lives.